I never thought a simple vacation could go so wrong. In fact, when I planned this trip, I imagined nothing but peace. 2 nights away from the noise of everyday life, a chance to reset. I wasn't looking for adventure, and I definitely wasn't looking for trouble. But trouble has a way of finding you, especially when you least expect it. I booked an Airbnb in Hawaii, a quiet little house nestled deep in the jungle. Nothing fancy, just a simple retreat surrounded by nature. The listing had beautiful photos, warm lighting, wooden interiors, lush greenery outside the windows. It looked perfect, cozy, secluded, exactly what I needed. The host, a woman named Leilani, seemed friendly in her messages. She had tons of positive reviews, guests praising her hospitality and the house's charm. It all felt safe and normal. I needed this escape, a break from everything. I had no idea that stepping into that house would be stepping into something I wasn't prepared for. The first sign that something was off came before I even arrived. I received an email with the subject line, "Important rules for your stay. Must read." At first, I barely glanced at it. Every Airbnb has rules. Don't smoke. Don't throw parties. Clean up after yourself. I assumed this would be the same, but as I scrolled, my casual attitude faded. The list was long, strangely long, and some of the rules made no sense. Lock all doors at 9 p.m. sharp. Do not wait a second longer. If you hear any tapping or knocking between midnight and 3 a.m., do not answer. Do not look out the window. If you wake up to any sensation of being watched, do not move. Wait until you no longer feel it. Do not turn on the porch light after sunset. If you find any object in the house that wasn't there when you arrived, do not touch it. Do not look directly at the object. Email us immediately. Before leaving, sprinkle salt at the 4 corners of the house and never look back when you go. I stared at the list, rereading certain lines, trying to make sense of them. At first, I laughed. Maybe it was a joke, a weird local superstition, some kind of tradition. The house was deep in the jungle, so maybe Leilani had reasons for these rules. Something about wildlife, burglars, or just keeping the place in order. It felt strange, sure, but harmless. I figured I'd follow them, if only out of respect. Besides, what was the worst that could happen? But then the night began, and everything changed. I arrived in the late afternoon, and the moment I stepped out of the car, I felt the quiet. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you hesitate. Still, the house was beautiful, even more so than the pictures had shown. Wooden beams stretched across the ceiling, the open windows let in a warm breeze, and beyond them, the jungle whispered with the rustling of leaves. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. It was the kind of place that should have made me feel at ease, and at first, it did. I unpacked slowly, placing my bag near the bed, my toiletries in the bathroom, my phone on the nightstand. Every movement felt strangely heavy, as if I were sinking into the house's stillness. For a while, I just stood in the center of the room, absorbing it, the weight of silence, the weight of being alone. It was different from the usual solitude I craved. It wasn't peace. It was something else. Then, as the sun began to dip beyond the trees, the feeling grew stronger. The air inside the house felt different, thicker, as if the walls themselves were pressing in, waiting. I glanced at the clock. 8:45 p.m. The rule came back to me suddenly, uninvited. Lock the doors at 9 p.m. sharp. Do not wait a second longer. I swallowed hard, shaking my head at my own nerves. It was just a precaution, right? Maybe the host had a reason. Wild animals, or maybe just overly cautious house rules. Either way, I wasn't about to test it. I double-checked the windows, shut the back door, and turned the lock on the front door at exactly 8:59 p.m. Settling onto the couch, I tried to shake the unease. Nothing had happened. Nothing would happen. I scrolled through my phone, let a movie play in the background, told myself I was just overthinking, and for a while, it worked. The night passed without incident. Until I woke up to a sound that sent a chill straight through me. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks on the front door, slow and deliberate. My breath caught in my throat, my body locked up. If you hear any tapping or knocking between midnight and 3 a.m., do not answer. Do not open the door. The words from the email slammed into my head like an alarm. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay still. The knocking continued, not frantic, not demanding, just patient knock-knock, a steady rhythm, like whoever or whatever stood on the other side knew I was awake, knew I was listening. I turned my head ever so slightly toward the nightstand. My phone screen glowed in the darkness. 12:42 a.m. I held my breath, and then silence. I waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. The air in the room felt wrong, like the quiet had thickened. My skin prickled. Every nerve in my body screaming at me not to move. I squeezed my eyes shut, pretending to be asleep, pretending I hadn't heard anything at all. But I couldn't sleep after that. I lay there, stiff as a board, my mind cycling through possibilities. Was it really nothing? Some late-night visitor lost in the jungle? A sick prank? My fingers itched to reach for my phone, to check the door, to look, but the rules stopped me. So I stayed there, frozen, listening to the silence. I didn't sleep again until the first light of morning. The second night, I woke up again, but this time it wasn't a sound that pulled me from my sleep. It was a feeling that something was there. I didn't know how I knew it, but I did. I could feel it, standing just inches from my bed and watching me. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I wanted to move, to run, but my body wouldn't listen. I was completely frozen, paralyzed by the sheer wrongness of the moment. The air around me was thick and unmoving, as if the entire room had been drained of life. The walls, the ceiling, the bed, everything felt distant, unreal. If you wake up to any sensation of being watched, do not move until it stops. The words from the rules echoed in my mind. I squeezed my eyes shut and forced myself to obey. Seconds stretched into eternity. My fingers twitched, desperate to grab the blanket, to shield myself from whatever was there. But I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just waited. Then, just like that, it was gone. The air shifted, like a weight lifting from my chest. I sucked in a breath, feeling control return to my limbs. My heart was still hammering, but I could move again. Shaky, unsteady, I forced myself out of bed. My legs felt weak, but I needed water. I needed to do something. Anything to break the tension. I made my way to the kitchen, gripping the counter for support. The coolness of the tile beneath my feet grounded me, made me feel human again. But as I passed the living room, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a small wooden carving on the coffee table. I stepped closer, my breath hitching. The figure was of a man, his face twisted, hollow eyes staring, mouth stretched unnaturally wide, as if frozen in an eternal, silent scream. I knew without a doubt that it hadn't been there before. I had checked the house when I arrived. Every room, every shelf, every table. This hadn't been here. The rule came rushing back. If you find any object in the house that wasn't there when you arrived, do not touch it. Email us immediately. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone. My fingers fumbled over the screen as I typed a message to Leilani, my breath uneven. She replied almost instantly. Do not touch it. Leave the house. Come back after sunrise. And when you return, do not look at the carving. Throw a towel over it. Take it outside. Bury it deep in the ground after sunset. Don't ask questions. I didn't need convincing. The moment I read those words, I was out the door. I didn't care how ridiculous it felt. I just ran. I stayed away until the sun had fully risen. The jungle was eerily quiet when I returned, and my hands were still shaking as I pushed open the door. The carving was still there. I forced myself not to look at it directly. I grabbed a towel from the bathroom, draped it over the figure, and lifted it with careful, trembling hands. Even through the fabric, it felt wrong, too cold, too heavy for something so small. I walked deep into the jungle after sunset, my heart hammering with every step. The trees loomed high above me, their shadows stretching through the thick darkness. I dug a hole as fast as I could, shoved the carving into the earth, and covered it with trembling hands. I didn't ask questions. I didn't look back. I sprinted to the house, locking the door behind me. My chest rose and fell rapidly, my skin slick with sweat. I needed to sleep. I needed this night to be over. But no sooner had I gone to bed, grabbed a blanket, and prepared to sleep, than I heard a whisper. It was so soft, so close, like a breath against my ear. Look at me. You must look at me, it said. A chill ran down my spine. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the blanket like a lifeline. The whispering continued, curling around me like smoke. Look at me, it continued. And then, stupidly, instinctively, I turned my head toward the sound. My breath caught in my throat. The carving was back. That was the moment I knew I had to leave. My entire body was screaming at me to run, to get out, to put as much distance between me and this cursed place as possible. My hands trembled as I stuffed my belongings into my bag, my breath coming in short, panic gasps. I didn't care about being quiet. I didn't care about anything except getting out. But then, the last rule. Before leaving, sprinkle salt at the four corners of the house and never look back when you go. I hesitated, my mind racing. Did it even matter anymore? Would it make a difference? But I wasn't about to take chances. My hands were numb as I grabbed the salt from the kitchen counter and rushed to each corner of the house, scattering it with quick, jerky movements. My legs felt weak, my chest tight with fear. When I reached the front door, I exhaled sharply, gripping the handle. Just open it. Just step outside. I twisted the knob. Nothing. I tried again, harder this time. The door didn't move. A sharp jolt of panic shot through me. I yanked at it, my breath hitching as I threw my weight against the wood. It wouldn't budge. Then, I heard a sound behind me, a soft, almost delicate rustle. The hairs on my neck stood on end. Every part of me screamed, "Don't turn around." But I did. And there it was, the wooden carving, sitting in the middle of the floor, facing me. My pulse pounded in my ears. I took a slow step backward, my mind trying to make sense of the impossible. I had buried it. I had followed the instructions. But now, here it was, waiting and watching. Then the room shifted. The walls seemed to breathe, warping and twisting, the corners stretching in ways they shouldn't. My vision blurred as a heavy pressure settled over me, thick and suffocating. The air hummed, like something was waking up. And then, the carving moved. At first, just a twitch, a slow, deliberate tilt of its head. Then, its mouth opened wider, too wide, a gaping, unnatural void. And then, a voice came from it. "You didn't follow the rule," it said. A cold hand clamped down on my shoulder. I couldn't move. The touch burned like ice, freezing me in place. My breath hitched. My body locked in terror. The door suddenly burst open, a rush of wind slamming against me. The wall spun. The room twisted around me. My screams echoed, swallowed by the air itself. And then, darkness. I don't remember hitting the floor. I don't remember what happened next. I just woke up. Morning light poured through the windows, painting the house in soft gold. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream, but the cold sweat on my skin, the racing of my heart, it was real. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my bags and bolted for the door. This time it opened with ease. The jungle outside was quiet, the world peaceful again. But I didn't look back, not once. Leilani never explained the rules. I never asked. And when I checked the Airbnb listing, a few days later, it was gone, like it had never existed. I wanted to forget. I needed to forget. But this morning, a new email appeared in my inbox from Leilani. "The house remembers you. It will call you back soon."